Hello, Olga.
Hi.
Welcome to Sigmacast. This has been a long-awaited episode. Been really keen to have a chat with you.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very much welcome. Olga is a financial astrologer. It's really, really cool. There's not many people out there that do financial astrology.
Maybe not so many in Australia, but yeah, overseas they're probably, but not. It's not an astrology that a lot of astrologers are into. But I think it's evolving as well. A lot more people are into it now.
Definitely. Your Instagram is AstroGann33, and AstroGann33 is also your Twitter. You got nearly 25,000 followers on your Twitter.
Yep.
I'm one of them.
Yes.
And you're a Scorpio.
I am.
In which house?
What do you mean in which? Where's my son? In my third house.
In your third house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which is
nice.
all about the mind, communication, but also delving into the depths of everything. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Right. I never take anything lightheartedly. I like to explore, and Scorpios are very good at. I call myself forensic astrologer.
Yeah.
Right, because I've got Virgo rising as well. So I like to analyse things and also to solve problems. And that's part of what I do because, we, when you get into astrology, you're looking for answers, for yourself probably at the beginning.
Yep.
And then after your people come, if you study, but then you move on. Once you've sort of worked yourself out, you want to know about other things, about the world, about other cycles, and it becomes a lifelong thing, And I'm always learning. There's different parts of astrology.
Yeah.
I mean, I came to astrology, I started in my early 20s, officially. I was already interested at 16. But I started
really cool.
I started studying in my early 20s with my teacher. So that was over 30 years ago. And then I was more into psychological astrology because I studied psychology at Melbourne Uni. So I was into the personality and psychology and all that, which was great, right? Because, if you know Carl Jung, he was a psychologist. Yeah. But he also used to do all the clients or his patients, he would do their charts. We have I
didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. And if you know the whole basis of his the 4 personality types. When you have sometimes you have an interview if you want to go for a job and they do a Myers-Briggs.
The Myers-Briggs test.
That's based on the 4 personality types, based on the 4 elements of astrology. Right?
So they broke down the 4 types and then they created the 16 personality traits?
Yeah, and all that. That's all based on the 4 elements in astrology, right? Fire, earth, air, and water.
Yep.
So, and he used to do, every patient he would do their horoscope. And also he did a lot of statistical work, and part of that was also why people stayed married. Right? So he did a whole thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and they had to have certain combinations between the partners for them to stay together. And often it was a personal point. So your ascendant, right, like your rising sign and the moon sign of the other person have to be similar or conjunct. And that kept the people together.
Okay.
So so that's how it was for me initially. And I did advanced. And so my teacher, Pamela Rowe, I learnt modern astrology, but then she was also a cosmobiologist. Cosmobiology is what we do, midpoints, and we use a dial, okay?
Yep.
And it's a German system that was developed by Reinhold Eberton, and it's different to just using the 360 wheel. We're using just the 90-degree dial and the 8th harmonic and the 4th harmonic. So this is what I've been teaching recently.
Yep.
But
this is what you were teaching yesterday.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Because people want to learn about it. It's as with astrology, there are cycles. Like there are cycles in fashion, right? There are cycles in astrology.
100%.
Well, so my teacher when I started astrology, everyone pretty much was into midpoints. okay, and cosmobiology, and it's called Uranian astrology.
Okay.
And even prior to that, right? And then now everyone's more into traditional astrology, which is the old stuff, because only recently we had the translation of some ancient astrological texts that hadn't been translated, and they were only translated, I think, in the 1980s. And so then there's a new thing about all the really ancient astrology, like Hellenistic. A lot of the younger astrologers now, all they're doing is traditional astrology, which is totally removed to what I do.
Yeah, because you've been growing and expanding and you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah. And so midpoints and the 90-degree dial, the whole principle of it is you don't even consider houses, you don't consider the signs. It's just a combination of the planets. So it's totally removed from tradition.
And the degrees and all that kind of stuff, the mathematics behind it.
The maths is still there. Yep. It doesn't change. Yep. But see, what happened with the German system, they were frustrated with traditional methods, okay? And German engineering, they want everything to be exact, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted to, and because it was all during the war, okay, they were developing this system. They wanted to be able to accurately time when they were going to be bombed, right? And they wanted to the minute, okay? Yeah. And they were finding with traditional methods that they weren't getting those results. So they came up with this midpoint system, which basically just looks at hard aspects. Hard aspect is a conjunction, a square, or opposition between planets, okay? And they found them to be the most reliable form of timing. So that's how it all came about. Wow. And and so my teacher's teacher, Doris Greaves, she's passed away now, she knew Eberton, the person, astrologer, German astrologer. Yep. She brought it to Australia. So there's a lot of us in Australia who learnt cosmobiology through her. And then I trained with her daughter as well. And I feel that because it's almost like a dying thing, system,
yep.
In a way, it's almost like they left it. I feel like I need to continue it just so it doesn't die, right? And there's not many. They call me the midpoint queen. I actually love that title. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy to have that, because with anything that, as I said, there's all these trends in anything, right? But it's such for timing, it's the most accurate for me way of astrology for timing. Right? And so because I do financial astrology, they want to know, what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty good at timing, and that's because I use midpoints and the 90-degree dial that I get accuracy, and so I'm quite happy to teach that.
The 90-degree dial.
Yeah. So it's all to do with harmonics.
Yeah.
So it's a fourth harmonic, which means that we're only looking at hard aspects, and they found that only the hard aspects were the ones that we notice because they're the ones that challenge us. Okay, so you can have trines and sextiles, which are harmonious aspects, but your life just goes along nice at that time when you experience them. Then they're not challenging you, but when you have a hard aspect and you're confronted with something, that's when you notice it, right? And so with trading, we're dealing with the emotions of people. The markets are controlled by people.
Big time.
Right? Yep. So it's all like mass psychology.
Yep.
So any astrologer can pretty much forecast when on a cosmic, what we can say on a mass consciousness level, that we're all going to be feeling a certain way according to how the planets are aligned. Okay, so there will be days when we know there's a hard aspect between planets, and when that happens, even on a mass level, we will all feel usually fearful, right, because it's hard energy. Yeah. Whereas then we can do the opposite. If we see like some positive aspects coming up, right, people will start feeling more optimistic. They want to buy, they want to risk more, and so it's just up and down. So that's what it is. And so it's pretty easy to forecast that way because we're all linked in.
Yep, definitely.
Right? So we're just like vibrating cells. And the planets are vibrating cells, and so we're all linked in on a vibrational level.
And the law of vibration.
Exactly, and that's what it is. And so, people that over the years tried to discredit what I do, and not just me, every other astrologer.
Really?
Oh yeah,
You have astrologers discrediting you.
of course. Not astrologers don't discredit me. Some people don't believe in astrology, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know. I've met people like that. They just shrug it off.
Yeah, they do, and like
they're the ones that need it the most today.
they might secretly actually read their horoscope or do something, but openly they're not going to admit that they actually believe in it. Okay, so I have those people challenging me, but over time it's not as much now. When I started, probably more. Now people are more open. I mean, you can get an app now, and you can look up everything. Okay, so people are more open to it. Young people are into astrology a lot more now.
It's gained a lot of traction.
It has, but at the same time, I worry about it because to me, having all the apps at your disposal, you haven't actually studied astrology properly, right? So to me, it's like it's becoming saturated, meaning that everyone can have access to it, but who is the real authentic person who has the knowledge anymore? Because there's all these young influencers who claim to be professional astrologers
on Twitter and TikTok.
Yeah,
and Instagram
they can tell this stuff. They've just read it.
They just came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
right?
They've just read it on their. In the morning they'll read up something on their app.
15-minute professional.
Yeah, they'll read what the the transits are for the day on the app, and they're just talking like
they just regurgitate whatever they read. Yeah,
and I've heard pretty bad stories where people have paid supposedly an astrologer, but what that astrologer, inverted commas, has done is that they just copied and pasted something from an astrological program and sent it to the person as a reading, and they've paid like, I don't know, 250 I was going to say $1,000 then, $250 or $300 for something that's been that's been taken from computer software. All right, so that's what worries me. I don't think we're moving in the right direction with astrology. Okay, I don't think we're evolving. I think we're actually going to the point of collapse. All right, I know this sounds a bit dramatic, but I just think that we're losing the authentic study of astrology because everyone in a way is doing it, but they haven't studied properly. They haven't gone through proper education.
It's like a lot more people have access to the information, but no one's actually taken it as a vocation. To study it.
Well, they haven't. Yeah, they haven't spent years of study like most of us older astrologers have.
You and Deborah have spent your whole professional life.
Yeah. So we studied, like we used to do all our exams. Do the charts by hand. That would take an hour just to do one chart. All the maths, right? Yep. So there's not many schools anymore that teach that. And there are still, and still people do commit to it. It's a big commitment. To study astrology, you have to commit at least 4 years of your life. It's like going to uni, any
like a degree.
It is a degree.
100%.
Well, it used to be, in the olden days, during, like even in the medieval time, before medieval time, the Renaissance, there was the 7 liberal arts that, you would study, and the highest level would be astronomy. So that would be the last thing you learnt, right? Yep. But astronomy included astrology in those days.
And astrology
they were the same thing,
right?
They did. Astronomer would cast charts, and they would do people's charts. So, but that was the highest level, and that was the highest level that you would start off with just grammar. Right, and then you'd go, I forget the others, rhetoric and music. You do geometry, mathematics, and then astronomy at the top. Wow. So that was the highest level. And that was ruled by Saturn, right? So Saturn is the planet, he's the master. So to get to that point, you achieve mastery. Okay, so Saturn is it, right? And so that's what I think, that discipline that you need to achieve that level, that's what I see. I don't see that anymore. This is because everyone's, doing their little thing. So I worry about it. I don't know where it's going. And with all AI and apps and, like anyone can be an astrologer now. And maybe that's a good thing because everyone's in touch with what's happening with the heavens. Yeah. but
it's kind of like a double-edged sword, eh? It's like it's connecting more people, but then at the same time, people are cutting a lot of time out. It's like because of this ChatGPT AI, a lot of people at university are writing theses that they didn't write.
Yeah.
And submitting it, and they're cutting corners.
Yeah.
And the corner cutting, sometimes that's the information, that's the struggle. The struggle's important.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's struggle, how are you going to get reward?
Yeah.
So
well, a lot of astrologers have tested the AI thing and asked questions, and they're totally wrong.
It's wrong, huh?
Yeah, it's wrong.
It doesn't understand.
It doesn't understand, and it's giving the wrong information, like totally wrong. So because AI is only going to give you what you put into it.
Yeah.
Right? So they're putting information into it, and it's going to spew out stuff. But if the information that's put in is not correct, it's not actually thinking, it's collecting.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I worry about it. I know we're going into the age of Aquarius, all right? We're starting that. And Aquarius is all about the Great Awakening, all right? And so it is very much Uranian astrology, okay? So it would be great if instead of us just having apps and having these pseudo-astrologers, I'm going to call them, we actually then incorporate it in our education like they used to, and then you master that. That would be awesome, because I think that's what needs to happen, that we all understand how the planets have an impact on us, because that's what astrology is. That's the only difference between astronomy and astrology, right? The astronomers, we still study the same, we still use the same maths, we have the same coordinates, everything's the same. An astronomer, they just don't believe that the planets have an impact on us, on the Earth. That's the only difference, okay?
And that's where astrology...
Well, we believe in the Hermetic, you were talking about Hermes, Hermetic principle, which is as above, so below. Yeah. So we're totally into that. Okay?
Well, the moon affects the tides.
Yeah.
And we're 70% water.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, and it's I've got an auntie that works in...
a hospital?
Yeah. she works at... She used to work at the Frankston Hospital.
Yeah.
And that's quite a world-renowned hospital.
Yep. And they
during
know.
Full moon.
Full moon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yep.
Chaos.
That's where
I feel it within myself.
Yeah.
Around the full moon.
That's where we get the word lunatic from.
Exactly.
From Luna, the moon, right? And so this is stuff that's known, you know, forever, that's a standard thing that happens on the full moon, because we're overall emotional. Yeah. And then, depending on how the alignments are with the other planets, right, just say there's a Mars alignment with the full moon, well, you're probably going to see more murders, rapes. Mars can be really aggressive. Yeah, okay?
The god of war.
Yeah, if it's on a hard aspect, okay, you can cause. So they know that they're going to have more of that sort of violent energy. So the ancients knew so much just by looking at, watching the planets and the stars as well, how they're rising and setting, okay? Yeah. So... and even I was just thinking, when people say, Olga, how does it work? There was a guy he wasn't an astrologer. He was just he worked for a radio waves company, okay? Oh, yeah. And his name is, you can research him when I finish the interview. His name was John Nelson, right? John Nelson. And he wanted to work out why at certain times were the radio waves being interrupted with, and it was like the GPS now. They didn't have GPS then, but whatever it was wasn't. It was being interrupted, so they weren't getting good communication signals. So he started, researching it, and he, not being an astrologer, worked out that it was the alignment of the planets, right? And so, but he was doing the heliocentric astrology. It doesn't matter. That's from viewing it from the sun. And he found when planets were aligned, like square opposite, usually squares, like 90 degrees, that the radio waves had been interfered with. So he could predict when it was going to happen, and it was a huge thing. So we know now, if it happens now, when there's certain alignments, we know that the technology, everyone talks about Mercury retrograde, but it's not just Mercury retrograde. It's when planets are aligned in a certain way that we get interruption with signals and satellites and the internet, everything, right, is on that grid, gets affected by the alignments of planets. And that was published in magazines, was a big deal, okay? And he said, I'm not an astrologer, but it's the same thing, because was showing to have an impact on radio waves, which is all frequency.
Yeah.
Okay, so it does have an impact. And the ancient astrologers knew everything. They knew how to predict weather, earthquakes, all that sort of stuff. Obviously the stock market as well.
And this has been known for millennia as well. Of course. Like ancient Greeks were teaching this in their universities. The ancient Romans knew that they learned from the Egyptians.
Yeah, that's right.
The Egyptians had it for God knows how long. Indians have their own,
Indians have a really
complicated system.
Really amazing. And they've probably been, people say, when did astrology start? Well, it's been around for thousands of years. And probably, I believe, even longer than what we've been told.
Oh, for sure. It's almost like Hermes came and taught it to the certain civilizations that were, during the golden age. Maybe that's what brought in the golden age.
Yeah, you're right. Probably that's right. And and it's only like everyone says it's sort of, what we know as astrology now is from Babylonian astrology because, But I believe as we discover more places like Göbekli Tepe, right? Yep.
Graham Hancock.
Which is like 10,500 they're saying, right? Yeah. And they've got each one of those pillars has got an animal which is related to a constellation.
Yeah, how
right?
cool is that?
So we have to change the history of what we've been told, even in astrology.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, they were looking, definitely those animals were part of the constellations, okay? So it was ages ago. It wasn't just 5,000 years ago.
It's like as long as humans were walking on the earth, like we would have been looking up. We would have had no light pollution back then, so it would have been such an amazing sight. Not like now. You'd barely see anything now.
No.
I'm happy when I see Orion's belt because I'm a Sag. But yeah, that was their way of, understanding, when to plant crops, when to, as they went into agrarian society, I'm sure that they were using the planets, they were using the orbits, they were using, learning the basic mathematics.
Well, I believe that the mathematics arose because they needed to calculate their cycles. Yeah. And that's how they started counting. That the first thing they would have watched was the moon because that's so regular. Yeah. And they've got evidence of bones from, that they used to, from like Neolithic man.
Yeah.
And bones of animals, and they've got little circles. So they were carving on that bone the phases of the moon, right? So it's been around forever. Yeah. And so that's how I believe we started learning to count. And obviously geometry arose because how did they work out the longitude and latitude and when planets were going to rise and set? So the whole system of geometry had to be developed so that it could study the gods. The planets were always the gods.
That's right.
Not one god, many gods.
Many gods.
And the stars were also their attendants. So you have the gods with their attendants, their guardians. Then you have all the angels, which are all a system of watching the heavens.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when we I've been to Egypt 3 times now, and then you can clearly see all this on the temple walls that they had the main characters, and then you have all the little stars underneath them. And there were all the stories. So all the myths we believe in and we've been told about are all astrological stories in the heavens.
So shivers in my body.
Yeah.
Talking about this. Is this the most recent trip when you went with Deborah?
I've been, everyone we've been to, we've pretty much gone to the same temples.
That's so cool.
But when you're there, that's when you realise that they knew so much more than what even the textbooks now that they say. I mean, everything that's written about Egypt, I believe with some of the scholars, it's just really on the surface because nobody really knows.
The symbolisms, they still haven't cracked it.
No, because they don't, and a lot of them don't believe that it's ancient. They're trying to tell us that the pyramids were built, 3,000 years ago, which is completely BS. And like they were there a lot longer than that. And so, the whole astrology and even what the pictures are, the engravings and the hieroglyphs and all that hasn't been deciphered, I believe, really properly. Right?
I don't reckon. Well, you can see by the Graham Hancock talks about it as well. Yeah. the weathering on the actual Sphinx and the pyramid of Giza indicates that it's been around for longer than, potentially 16 to 32,000 years.
Yeah.
So it was before Younger Dryas.
Yeah.
That means that at the time that, approximately when it was built, it was sub-Saharan.
Yeah.
Like it was tropical.
Yeah.
In that area. So there would have been palm trees. There would have been it was tropical. And that makes more sense to build such an ancient megastructure in a more tropical zone.
Yeah.
Because that kind of mimics like what's going on in Mexico and what's happening there in Peru and Brazil. They're finding all these, especially in Peru, I've been there and I've seen all the wonderful and amazing like megastructures they've got there that's quite similar to Egypt, and it actually looks the same as
because
Africa.
it's the same people.
Yeah.
They've been taught by the same people.
They've been taught by the same.
All the same.
Hermes Trismegistus.
That's it. That's who he was. And Hermes is Thoth, in Egypt,
Yep.
or Judy, the scribe. He's everywhere. Pretty much every temple you go to, he's there. Yep. And he had a system of measurement which is based on the number 22. I don't know if you know this, Bill. But anyway, there's a lot to know, but it's a like in the Hebrew alphabet, there's only 22 letters.
Yep.
Okay, and so his number is 22. Okay. So a lot of what we have now does originate from Egypt. All right, and that's where they all went to be initiated into the mysteries. You went to study there. Even Plato, Pythagoras, I meant to say. He spent, I think, 20 years in Egypt learning with the high priests. Everything he learnt was there, all the mathematics and all the planetary stuff. And he, I believe, with I was going to talk about Gann's Square of Nine, but anyway.
We can get there.
Gann was very much. We haven't started. Yeah, we haven't spoken about him yet. But So it was Egypt was the center of that enlightenment area, like learning about.
Definitely,
you would go there to be initiated, and it was hard work. It wasn't given to you. I think with Pythagoras, they wouldn't get any information until they'd been studying for 20 years.
Wow.
Right?
So it's like show us that dedication you've got before we actually
until you get the real stuff, right?
If
if you weren't disciplined enough, you wouldn't get to that. So that's what I mean now. We know now we get information like you press a button.
It's just so easy to get the information.
And so it's like
hello Google, thank you Google.
Yeah, it's lost its
hey, Google.
You searching for the answers. It's just there, but it doesn't mean that that's giving you the correct answer. No. And so that's
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I just, as you were talking about the initiates in Egypt, I was just thinking about the Library of Alexandria and like how much infinite wisdom would have been in that, and
they destroyed everything.
They destroyed it all, and
they're trying to destroy stuff now too.
Yep.
And because they destroy things because they don't want people, the masses,
to awaken.
That's correct. Only the elite. Even in the ancient times, only the elite or the priests, if we call them that, they were the only ones that had the knowledge. Yeah. Everyone else was illiterate and you didn't know anything.
Just concentrate on farming.
Yeah, or you'll be a slave.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's always that level of people that try to keep the masses, in the dark. And so they removed the knowledge. So when they burnt Alexandria, they did that. Yeah. The Vatican takes a lot of stuff, as we know. They store it. Yeah. And they've still got a lot of this. I think a lot of before they burnt Alexandria, they took it.
They took all the good stuff, and then they buried it in the Vatican.
Yeah, and other places, so that someone would always have the knowledge or access to it.
But only a small minority, a very, very small 1%, quarter of a 1%.
That's correct, and that's how they keep us in the dark.
Yeah.
And because if we were awakened and we had access to that, we wouldn't be living in this 3D reality. We're all sort of, we'd be in awakened status. But they can't control it for much longer. Yeah. That's what I believe.
The grip is kind of loosening.
Yeah, as honestly, as we move more into the age of Aquarius, they can't hold us down anymore. And so that's what they realise, and they're trying their hardest to do that.
Yeah.
So
especially with the internet now, like they're trying to clamp down and narratives and
That's
this and
right.
that.
So we're still being censored,
Yep.
okay, which is basically the same as when they used to burn the books or burn the libraries. Same thing happening with censorship. Like they don't want people to even go beyond what they want us to know.
Control.
Yeah, and so even, with everything that we do. Yeah. But I don't think they can do that for much longer.
I don't think they can either.
Yeah.
If you could have an in-depth conversation with any historical figure based on their astrological chart, who would it be and what would you discuss?
There's only one person I would ever want to talk to historically.
Who's that?
Let's guess.
I have a feeling I know who it is.
Yeah, his name's W.D. Gann. Honestly, if I had time with him, just him and I, in the physical,
yep.
I mean his chart is like fully fixed. Okay, so that means that he had all his main concentration of planets in fixed signs, which are Taurus. He had Aquarius and Leo. Makes him like full on focus, which is what he did. Yeah. And very hard. He would be so hard to live with because he wouldn't budge.
He did get divorced from his first wife.
He had three. He
three
ended
wives.
Up three. Had a third wife. Okay. So yeah, they probably have a hard time to live with him.
Yep.
He wouldn't budge. And the other thing about his chart is that he had a Saturn that's unaspected. Now, I don't know how much astrology you know, but
unaspected Saturn.
Unaspected planet means one that doesn't make an aspect to anything in your chart. It just sits there on its own, right? That can happen in your chart.
Wow.
And his is Saturn, which to me describes him really well because he was very Saturnian, right? Because he was so disciplined. The only person who could have produced what he produced, you have to be totally focused and like concentrate and almost like a hermetic, Hermes is like a Saturn character that's just studying and doing his work and, focus, right? And that's what he was doing. And like he had, in his day, they had no computers, they had no calculators, right? Everything was hand charted. All the charts were done by hand, right? And we know from after he died, the people who eventually got all his material, Billy and Nicky Jones, I think it was 2 truckloads of charts and stuff of his work, right? And some of them still are in boxes that haven't been unpacked, right? Wow. So that's what a Saturn, unaspected Saturn would be because it's total focus on mastery. Yeah. You know how I was saying Saturn's all about mastery. And it's a real old, I'm working hard, okay? And that's what he did, like totally working hard. So would I chat to him about it? Of course I would. And there's, that's about it really. But definitely I would love to have that opportunity to talk to him.
That would be a really, really cool...
But I do talk to him anyway.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you got the connection from the ethereal realm.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. How might astrology evolve or adapt in the future to better serve and resonate with a changing world?
Well, that's what we were talking about before. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's actually evolving to a better place. I think it's actually is that a word, devolving?
I don't know.
We'll make it up. We'll pretend it's a real word. Because it's almost like it's saturated. It's like when you get a product and at the beginning it's new and unique.
Yeah.
And only a few people are doing it. But then everyone gets and it saturates the market and it loses its authenticity. That's how I feel it is. And I believe the only way we can overcome that is that if it's taught at schools and properly as a real subject.
And what are the chances of that?
I don't know.
Maybe in a Waldorf education kind of scenario.
I think it may be with the age of Aquarius. I'm hopeful.
Hopefully.
As we move into that more and more, we might all have access to astrology.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because it's been pretty integral to my life.
Yeah.
And
I like hearing people talking, that they know their, the main parts of their chart, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few bloke mates and, they kind of come around to it a bit. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm a Leo. I'm the Leo the lion, they're like learning.
I like that. I like that part of it. I just don't. I just don't like the fact that there's so many fraudy type people.
Yeah, people taking
advantage of people, and it's so easy because you know when people are looking for answers, that's when they go to seek an astrologer. Okay, so usually people come to you because they're at a low point in their life,
looking for guidance, very
easily to be manipulated by someone. Yeah, so that's what I worry about. If they're getting the right information, and some people don't, and then they'll come to real astrologers and they need help because they've been told something that's really unethical because they haven't learnt the ethics.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't studied properly and they don't know what's right or wrong. We have ethics in like any profession that we have to stick to. And when you don't have that foundation, you're just going to say whatever you want and do whatever you want, and you're taking advantage of people.
You're taking people for a ride. You know?
And then that really screws with them because they listen to every word you say. So there's a big responsibility with what we do. Yeah. You got to be careful of what we say, how we word it, because that can take the person's power away. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then so we've had a couple of issues with what we've heard, and that's what I worry about because they haven't trained properly.
Yeah.
And they don't know what is the authentic way to do a reading, even that, right? The ethical way.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
I think for people that are watching this, you know, like if you're going to go to see an astrologer, like do a bit of background work on them beforehand. Make sure that they actually are accredited or they've been doing it for a long time.
Well, ask them where they've studied.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And check it out, because if you're paying good money, you want to make sure that you've got a real professional astrologer, not just someone who's read a couple of things on the internet or on an app and claiming to be one.
Yeah, definitely do your due diligence beforehand.
That's it.
I've known you for a very long time.
Yeah.
And in that time, I've noticed that you're always traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
Where has astrology taken you, and what are some of your most memorable moments?
I'm very lucky. I feel I'm grateful that since I've got into studying WD Gann, it's taken me to a lot of places. And I've been able to travel in the United States. I've spoken at a couple of conferences there.
Nice.
I've done the UK. I've done Hong Kong, Australia, obviously, my own country, and Egypt. I've been 3 times. So for me, the most memorable, there've been a couple of memorable ones. I'd loved being in New York. I did a 2-day Gann thing in New York. And I did a bit of a Gann pilgrimage, you know. I went to his grave in
Brooklyn?
Yeah, Greenwood Cemetery. And then I had all the addresses of all the offices he had over the many years in and around Wall Street. So I went to each one and took photos.
All the addresses are quite the numbers and...
Yeah, he picked numbers. Like he had 49, 77. He did everything not by chance, obviously. So I did all that. That was great. And I got into the New York Stock Exchange by very lucky, right? Cool. Last minute. Yeah. You can't get into there anymore. And you have to have permission. You have to know a member who's part of the New York Stock Exchange to get you in. Because after 9/11, they changed the whole thing about
security
and all that. So anyway, the reason I wanted to go in there was because I was told that there was a portrait of him somewhere, right? Yeah. So I thought, I've got to see if I can get in there. Anyway, it was at the last minute. Yeah. Gann helps me in mysterious ways. Anyway, I met someone who said, Olga, we can get you in, come, blah, blah, blah. The last day that I was in New York, mind you.
Wow.
So we got in there and they showed me around. They made me pretend I'm on the brokers thing, taking photos of me. And then they said to me, they got the person who does the archive, sorry, we haven't had any thing about WD here at all. All right. So I got wrong information. But then I got corrected and they told me that it was actually in the Chicago Trader Board that they had in there. Okay. So, but anyway, I got to be, and at the time, as you know, they were filming on CNN in the morning and I'm in the background. So I was like, I photobombed it. So I was on
that's
TV.
funny.
It was like this thing. I pinched myself a couple of times. It was like I couldn't believe I was there. It was just like so surreal. So I got to do that. That was funny.
Yeah.
That was funny. I mean, just because I was at the right time at the place at the right
Then
time.
you also got to find out that, he does have a portrait and it's in Chicago.
Yes,
So-
but I did go to Chicago for another conference in 2018, but you can't even get in there. And I didn't know anyone who worked there, so I just didn't try to do that. But it doesn't really matter. I went to his grave. That was emotional. I cried a little bit. I took him sunflowers, right? And you know why I took him sunflowers? Do you know?
Sunflowers. No.
Okay, because sunflowers, the way they grow, the seeds grow inside the sunflower. It's a Fibonacci.
Yes, it is.
The Fibonacci series.
Yeah.
And so I thought, just sticking with and plus, it's a sun thing. It was near his birthday, and that symbolises the sun.
Yep.
So, and it was during the Venus transit. So in 2012, you know how the world was going to end and everything.
Oh, yeah.
There was also Venus transit in June, which the Venus, if you remember, looked like a little beauty spot in front of the sun. It was moving in front of the sun. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I happened to be in New York on that day, and that's when I went to visit him at his grave. So it was big. It was a big thing for me. But Egypt, I think, is the most... when you go to Egypt... maybe even when you've been to Peru, the energy there. You feel that you get the goosebumps, and you can feel it moving through you. And I know that you go through your
supercharged.
Yeah, you go through your crown chakra and everything. Okay, so Gann, he had his own pilot. Okay, a female pilot for 20 years, Eleanor Smith. And she would fly him to wherever he wanted to go. So she flew him to Egypt and India.
Wow.
And he was seeking esoteric knowledge there. And so he had a lot of his drawings, and I've only seen a couple of things because I haven't published everything of his but I knew that he kept a model of the pyramid on his desk in his office. And so, of course, I wanted to experience that. So I've done it 3 times. And when I'm there, I try to channel him. What do you want me to look at? And, I get these downloads and I get the goosebumps, and I know he's there in spirit with me. He doesn't pretty much leave me. I know people think I'm crazy. I don't really care. I mean, he's with me all the time because I believe he wrote a novel, about Tunnel Through the Air.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't read it, but I've heard
so
about it.
he wrote this novel, Tunnel Through the Air, and that's how the traders came to me because they wanted to learn how to decode this book. All right, that's how I got into Gann. Right, 18 years ago.
Yep.
Tunnel Through the Air is like a Da Vinci Code, but it's a coded novel.
You need
and
astrology.
You need to know astrology and maybe other things, like maybe a Masonic person would understand stuff. Maybe a numerologist would see it from their way. Maybe some
way as well.
There's different things you would pick up. Okay, I'm the astrologer, so I pick up the astrology. Yep. And so when they told me about him, I said, I've got to work this out, So I got the book, and I've got a file this big of charts because every time he talks about something, he wants you to cast a chart. You cast a chart, trying to work out what he's telling you. So it became my obsession. Scorpios love to delve deep, and also anything becomes an obsession. Yep. Still is in a way. And so that took me to, learning about what he was trying to get across. Yeah. So I believe he left that book as a legacy for people in the future to study him.
Clues.
And I tell people, if you study that book, he's going to be looking over your shoulder like he looks over mine. And then if you ask questions, because he wants you to work at it, like a Saturn mastery, that he's watching to see who's actually studying.
And paying attention.
And you get downloads in. And that's what happens to me anyway.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I pretty much dedicated my whole life, working life, to him the last 18 years.
Yeah, wow. Well, that pretty much answers my next question.
Yeah.
Who was William Delbert Gann to you?
Oh, he's everything to me. We've got a really synastry, like when you look at two people's charts called synastry, we have amazing connections in our charts, he and I. And so, there's a really strong karmic link, and I can really feel that. And I really feel that there are other people, obviously, that do promote Gann's work. It's not just me. But I'm the first one, I believe, who actually focused just on his astrological work. Like there have been other people, I shouldn't say just me, but a lot of them weren't actually astrologers. They were people who maybe started reading his things and then working with the cycles. But I've come from being the astrologer into his work, and I knew nothing about trading. So people say that's the best thing because all I've done is studied his methods and nothing else. So I haven't sort of, you know, what's the word, been influenced by other people, right?
100%.
So I've studied myself. I haven't learnt this from anybody. I just got all his material. I bought it. And I spent hours and hours studying. So everything that I've come up with and what I teach is from me, not from anybody else. So that's what he wants you to do.
And that's good because also, like, just say if you are in an environment, just say like the New York Stock Exchange, and you're trying to use W.D. Gann's principles in there, the amount of interference that you're going to get from other people, distractions, their points of view, that's going to derail your ability to analyze and read the data and then stick to your path.
Exactly.
So that's actually a very, very good thing.
And there's people who want things from me, like me to just hand it to them. Just tell us. You know, you're always talking in riddles. I said, I'm not talking in riddles. I'm just, you know, I worked hard for this. I've studied hard for it. And so I can give you guidelines, like with my courses people can buy. I tell them, I give them step-by-steps on some of them. But then they've got to apply it and practice, you know. I can only give you so much. And he was really strict. Gann was a strict person. You know, I can't imagine him being someone who gave information away freely. You would have to work for it because he would have, right? And that's the whole thing. So,
That's important, you know. Like, people should work for, you know, especially information like what we're talking about. Like, how many people are trying to trade? They're trying to get that extra edge. But they don't want to put in the effort. You know, that's good that you have to put in the effort.
Yeah, well, that's what my whole goal was to not do. I don't want to do the forecasting for people. I want to teach people how to forecast for themselves. So that you've got the advantage.
It's like teach a man to fish, you know?
Yeah, that's right. I can give you the fish, but you want to learn how to fish for yourself.
And if the people are asking for the fish, that just says so much about them themselves. And
so that's the thing. It's empowering to know, to studied yourself and worked it out and not rely on anybody because you can get so, you know, who are you going to listen to? You know, like people follow all these people and, you know, one person's saying this, another person's saying that, right? Well, if you know yourself, you should really stick to the rules for yourself and not worry about the outside noise. And that was my aim. Right. So I'm not teaching them how to trade. I'm teaching them astrology.
How to interpret the data.
Yes. And also that then they can time their trades, which astrology is all about timing.
100%.
Right. So if you're trying to, you know, you might have, you know, people use indicators, you know, oversold, overbought, whatever. You know, and they're trying to pick a time when to buy and sell. Well, your planets are going to tell you when to buy and sell because you can time, right? Gann had so many principles that I love and I teach, and I'm really good at forecasting. I don't know if you do follow me on Twitter, and so people can see that I'm forecasting months, sometimes months before something happens. You can only do that with astrology, and you can only do that with Gann's work, which is cycles analysis. There's so many things you can do. And even if you didn't want to get into the astrology, he had other ways of just looking at cycles as well. So,
Well, it's interesting. Like, I remember I saw you just kind of like before, when you guys just got back from Egypt. And that was like pretty much at the start of COVID. And I asked you about Bitcoin because I was like thinking about putting some money into Bitcoin. And you're like, oh, you know, maybe just wait a little bit. And then the Bitcoin market crashed a couple of weeks later. And then I put some money into that. And then it went up like 10-fold. So I was pretty happy with that.
Good.
And I took some of my money out and I was like, hey. It's a lot to do with the emotion and I don't know too much about Gann's principles and stuff like that, but I guess that's an example of me listening to you. And it worked out pretty cool.
Bitcoin's actually, I work on it a lot because so many people are interested in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's actually easy to analyze for some reason. Some are easier than others.
Yeah.
You know, and it is motion, right? But also I use the natal chart. It's like me.
2009 when it was.
Yeah, it's like me using your natal chart.
Yeah.
And so any astrologer can do what I do, but I'm better at it. No.
I don't have any doubts when it comes to finances.
No, I shouldn't come with ego. I'm just saying I like it. It's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I get it wrong. That's normal. You know, like you think something's going to happen a way that it's happened in the past and it doesn't work out. But that's when you come into people talk about money management. You know, you don't take a lot of risk. You've always got your stops on, you know, because things can go, you know, something can happen that day in the news and it can totally change what you think is going to happen.
Yeah,
okay?
and that's especially with Bitcoin. That seems to be the...
it's so emotional. It's a roller coaster. Well, Elon Musk, for example. Yeah, I think you know, like a couple of years ago, I think it was, I was watching him a lot because he was, he used to tweet a lot and that would have an impact on all the cryptos like Dogecoin.
He'd just say Ethereum and then Ethereum will go up like 200%.
And so now he's not doing that anymore because they tried to, you know, the authorities tried to stop him because it like having an impact on
big time. Yeah.
But I was watching his chart. It was during Mercury retrograde. Yeah. And I looked at it and I knew the degree that Mercury was retrograde and I knew that was an important part in his chart, his midpoints.
Yeah.
And I made a tweet. I said, in the next 24 hours, there's activating this aspect. He's probably going to tweet something and it's going to be negative, right? And like the next day, it wasn't even 24 hours. He put up a thing, I don't know if you remember, he put up a Bitcoin with a broken heart and he put two people that separated. That minute, that instant, it just went bang, everyone sold, right? And it was like, and that's the magic of midpoints. Right, that's the timing that the Germans want. Yeah, you can only do that with midpoints. You wouldn't have seen that in a normal chart, in a 360. Right, so that's what I love doing. I don't watch him so much now. If I wanted to, I could become, you know. But I tell people if you trade Tesla and Twitter, you should really be watching Elon Musk because everything you get news about him, it affects the stock. Right. So, that's that part.
Yeah, he's a big influence, that guy.
He
World's
is.
richest man now.
Yeah.
Very interesting fellow. Gann angles, also known as Gann lines, were one of W.D. Gann's key tools. These diagonal lines drawn on price charts represented the relationship between time and price.
Yep.
How important are Gann lines in today's market analysis?
Hasn't changed. They're the most, for me, I make the most accurate forecasting using those lines and also squaring time and price. That's he tells you if you follow that, you'll make money all the time. The Gann angles are based on sacred geometry. It's all to do with the lines. Actually, I believe because he was a Mason, not that I'm saying, you know, he was a Mason. He was a 33-degree Mason, and they learnt all about geometry, sacred geometry.
Knowledge.
Yeah, and so everything's about measurement. But if you go to Egypt, you look at, I believe the Gann fan is actually, if you look at the apron of the pharaoh, it's a shape, and it's got all the lines coming up. Right, like a Gann fan. And what those angles are is the rays of the sun, the angles that the sun comes in every day, changes over time, right? And so the centre line, the 45 degrees, is that if the sun was moving 1 degree every day, that's your 45, right? So, and the others reflect the rate of the other planets. So I'm giving away a lot of secrets here. And so in that Gann fan, you think, I get a lot of criticism. Olga, you got too many lines in your chart. What are you looking at? And then they send me terrible pictures, make fun of my work. And I said to them, have you ever seen Gann's charts? He had so many lines on his chart. Okay, I've got hardly any on mine. So he was watching every move. So if you've got a lot of moves, like highs and bottoms, right? Yeah. You're supposed to run a fan from each one of those. So can imagine if you got a lot, right? Which is what he did. You're going to get a lot of lines on your chart. So it can be too much noise sometimes, but I tend to pick the highest high or lowest low, and just try to stick to those.
Okay.
And they've given me the best. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you can see I talk about square out dates, and they come in amazingly, right? And he just says when time and price are square, expect a changing trend, and that's what happens. So if the market's going down, it reverses, and the other way goes up. Right,
it's interesting.
So it's the best timing, and that's not even involving astrology.
Yeah, it's just
time. Well, it's the sun, really. Time, sun.
There's time in the sun.
1 day, 1 degree a day.
Was W.D. Gann's biggest and most important discovery planet cycles?
Probably. Well, you'd have to ask him that.
I call upon you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he and like he loved it. Okay, so he was a devout Christian. He knew his Bible inside out. He learned to read by reading the Bible because they came in the strict Baptist. Right?
Yep.
And so he tells you to read the Bible 3 times, but that's a bit of a code. And he tells you that all the cycles, he discovered all the cycles in the Bible for trading. But if you look at all the numbers sequence, there's 3 and 7. 7 is the most used number in the Bible. 7.
That's
so
my favourite
that's
number.
Yeah, 7 is the number of that Saturn does every 7 years. We have a quarter of its cycle.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at market cycles every 7 years, you do see a pattern. All right. So it's one of the cycles that he tells you it's a fatal number. And then at 49, you got 7 times 7. He calls it the fatal year. A lot of if you're watching a stock or something, every 49 years has a dramatic change. And he tells you, like he had private students, okay, that would have paid a lot of money to have. He must have had a select few that he taught the astrology to, because we got evidence of that, some letters.
Yep.
But they would have paid probably equivalent, I don't know, $500,000 now, something ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, people say to me, "Oh, Olga, he died without money." Well, he had 2 planes. Right, this is during the Depression.
Yeah,
he had his own pilot. He had a huge yacht, and I've been told that because his family didn't agree with what he was doing, he didn't leave them anything. Right,
so it made it look like he didn't have much.
He gave it to charity, to all these hospitals, the Freemason hospitals. That's what I've been told. Okay. I can't confirm that, but I believe that there's. Of course, he made money.
Well, it's estimated that he made at least $500,000 from the stock market.
Yeah,
in the early 1900s.
Yeah, I know. So but then there's always people that just don't want to believe. Okay, but then at the end of his life, I don't even think he was trading anymore. I think he was just making money from horse racing and the lottery. That's when he lived in Florida. He married a woman. His 3rd wife was like 30 years younger than he was, right? Yep. And he moved to Florida, and apparently that's all he was doing. So he was using astrology to do those, and he was making so much money.
That's like retirement.
That was his retirement. Have a bit of fun. So that's such an enigma. I mean, for me, it's just like, oh my God, I love it. So of course, I try to do the lotto thing myself. I don't do the horse racing. I don't like horse racing. I think it's not. It's abusing the horses.
A bit unethical.
It is very, but I mean, lotto fine. So I do dabble in that a lot, using the astrology for it. So that's my life.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I've been using the same lotto numbers for about 10 years.
They might come in eventually.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking, right? Eventually. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
How has Gann's work influenced your approach to astrology? And what specific aspects of his teachings did you find most valuable or insightful?
When I started with WD, my skills as an astrologer had to develop more. And the reason was that he did all aspects of astrology, because he was also forecasting weather, right? We need to forecast weather because they would know if the crops, like for crops, if it's going to be drought or flooding, and right. So he was good at doing that, and also mundane forecasting. So world events, he was really good at forecasting wars and so forth.
Interesting.
So I had to get into all those aspects of astrology, which I hadn't done before. and I love it. I mean, part of my forecasting is mundane cycles, not so much weather. I haven't really done a lot in that. I do love it, but there's so much you can do, right? It's good to focus on certain things. But yeah, so that really expanded my skills as an astrologer, and obviously the financial part, you know, working out his way of looking at cycles in the past. So he tells you the past, the future is just a repetition of the past.
Yeah.
Right? So he would go to forecast the future. He would go back to get as much data as he could, and he went to London, to the British Museum, the library, and just to access data of wheat and cotton, going back, I've got the charts at home, going back to the 1200, right?
Wow.
So he then plotted that on a chart. So then at the bottom of the chart, if you look at what he's got written, he's got Jupiter, Saturn, conjunction.
Talk about focus.
Yeah. And so he would watch every time Jupiter and Saturn came together, which is a 20-year cycle.
Yep.
Okay. But every third one, the 60th year, they come back to the same point in the zodiac. So it's a really well-known cycle. He called it his 20-year master forecasting cycle. So I use that a lot. I also he had a financial timetable that I still use when I do my forecasting, and that's based on the 18 to 19-year cycle, which is the lunar nodes.
Yep.
It's all to do with the moon, right? And Stonehenge. Stonehenge is encrypted with this cycle. And a couple of other things that I do. And that's how when I start off the year and people buy my OMS planetary watch, I go through all these cycles to then make a forecast of what I am, according to Gann's rules, should be expected the year coming up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I love doing it. I mean, I've been pretty good. I mean, as I said, there's always an element of error in everything we do. Even WD made mistakes.
Yeah.
There's some of the forecasting he did in some years didn't quite eventuate, but that's it. That's what it's all about. As long as you get accurate as much as possible, but there's always maybe 20% that it's not going to work for you.
Still good odds.
Still
very
good
bloody
odds.
good odds.
Very good odds.
Can you share any personal experiences or success stories where Gann's methods have provided significant insights or accurate predictions in your astrological practice?
I've done plenty of those. You know, like I just, I've done, well, if you look back last year, when I do something called a composite chart. When basically I'm looking at different cycles like he did.
Yep.
He would overlap. I've got his charts. So he would take a slice, like a 20-year slice, and he'd put it on top and another one and another one. And he would then look at the trend to see whether they had a common thing.
Yeah.
Like it's called a composite, right?
Yeah.
So I use that way. So last year I knew that there would be a low in October. And I told people that at the beginning of the year. And, of course, we got a major low in October. Yeah. And that's all using Gann's way, okay? The same with everything I've done. You know, you just have to follow me on Twitter. I've done so many. Yeah. You know, like I'm proud of it because I've worked hard to you know, study what he was doing, and I'm still applying his system, and it still works.
And it yields results.
It does. Yeah. So, yeah, I've made some really, and everything's public. You know, people there'll be these, you know, what they call naysayers or trolls or whatever. Olga, you know, on Twitter, they have never followed me. They probably just started. Oh, you just said that after the fact. I said, have you been following me? Because have a look. Everything's there. Right? I actually made this forecast 4 weeks ago. I've even done a couple of reels when I did a Bitcoin one. You know how Bitcoin went crazy the other day on the 20th? Yeah. I did that 3 weeks ago. I did a little reel. I said, expect a change in trend on the 20th of June based on Times Square and price. And it just went crazy.
Yeah, it's gone over 30 grand.
Yeah. And so on the exact day that I said, and that was according to Gann rules, all right? I do those public forecasts so people say that I'm not full of shit, basically.
Yeah. And your reels have gotten better.
You're
using the green screen thing now. It's really cool.
I'm learning. Yeah. And so, you know, like, and I'm not doing it after the fact because it's there. Evidence is there.
Yeah.
right? And I'm not coming from ego.
Yeah.
I'm coming from me working hard at doing something.
100%.
Right? And I'm showing you that it can be done.
Yeah.
Do you want to learn this? Well, then do my courses.
The trolls, there's going to be trolls in everything. Yeah. They're just people that they've got their own shit going on.
Yeah.
They're obviously depressed with themselves and they need to take it out on
Yeah,
others.
that's right. Yeah.
Like I got trolls. Like you get them everywhere.
Yeah.
But I just feel sorry for those people.
Yeah.
I don't engage.
No,
It's
I
better.
don't engage either.
Yeah.
I just block them. I say to them, if you're going to say something rude, and I mean, I don't mind criticism if it's good.
Constructive, yeah.
Constructive,
that's fine.
but if you're saying that I'm fake and I haven't, I've done it after the fact and you haven't really watched me, well, that pisses me off.
Oh, that would piss me off too.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
No, they can get lost. They can get blocked.
That's it. The Scorpio sting comes in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And just chops them on. That's it.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I'm on the cusp of Scorpio and Sagittarius.
Oh, well, there you go.
So maybe the Sag tail has a little scorpion sting.
Yeah,
in
well,
it.
they are linked.
Gann's work is often associated with financial markets and trading.
Yeah.
How do you see the connection between Gann's astrological techniques and financial astrology? Are there any specific correlations or applications you find particularly compelling?
Do you mean how are they similar? Like just normal astrology?
How are they similar?
Well, they are. They're similar. I mean, you don't. Financial astrology is not that different from personal astrology because we're using the same techniques.
Yeah.
Right, we're still looking at a natal chart. Like, so if we're looking at a stock, for example, Tesla, we're using the natal chart when it listed on the stock exchange.
Yep.
That's like a person. And then we're running transit to it, like we would do to a person. So the actual technique
Similar.
is the same.
It's the same.
But we're applying it to a different instrument,
Yep.
okay? Rather than a person. So you can do that for anything. You can do it like when you started a business. You can do it when you got married. Whatever the timing of the starting of something is exactly the same. And the cycles analysis is just, us going, the more data we've got. The good thing about astrology, we know where the planets were in the past and we know where they're going to be in the future.
Yeah.
Right? That's already, sorted, right? So there's no mystery there. So as he said, the further you go back, the more, that's why he went to the library and got all that data.
All the way to the 1200s.
Yeah, because then he would look at the cycles of the planets and what they did in the past, and then he can make a forecast into the future. So there's certain things I can't predict, like Bitcoin, because we don't have a lot of history.
It's new.
It's new. So we can't use really the outer planets any yet, right? But when you've got something like the Dow Jones, I've got 120 years of data. I can make more long-term cycles analysis of that. Some things you can't. You can only use the sun and maybe the inner planets, so it's not as detailed. But, I love it. I love the research part. It's very much the Virgo in me, the Virgo Scorpio.
Oh, yeah, Virgo.
Analysis.
Yeah,
we know but really deep analysis and solving the mysteries of the universe is one of my mottos as well. And that's what Gann, when you get into Gann, if you really get into Gann, it opens up this rabbit hole, but into the mysteries of the universe.
I might have to do your course.
Yeah, well, it just opens you up to everything because he was a mystical, magical person who was into everything esoteric.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
The more I learn about him, the more I'm enthralled into his life.
And all the people who were actually millionaires were all into that. That's how they got to access to all. Like J.P. Morgan, right? His astrologer was Evangelina Adams. She was a famous astrologer in New York. And his quote was, millionaires, what's the quote again? I forgot it.
Millionaires don't care about astrology, but billionaires
something
do.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I butchered it.
Yeah, I butchered it too. She was his astrologer, okay? So the people who made, these men and women, whatever, in the know, they knew the esoteric stuff. They know the astrology. They were the ones making the money, right? And it's still happening now.
Yep.
The people in positions of power,
mega power,
even in financial worlds, they use astrology and they don't talk about it.
They keep it hush-hush because they don't want everyone else using it.
You know how much of the fund managers and stuff use astrology? I've been told they use my stuff.
They won't admit it because that makes them look like they're not smart.
And then people won't say that they're using astrology. They say they're using cycles analysis.
Oh, yeah. What does that mean?
Well, the cycles of the planets. But
cycles of what?
They don't want to use the astrology. So I don't have to hide behind anything. I'm the astrologer.
You're true, authentic yourself.
That's it. Yeah. And I'm using astrological cycles. So I'm free. There's a lot of people aren't free. They're stuck in this. We're not allowed to say, keep it quiet. Don't tell them you're using astrology.
Paradigm. Yeah.
So, but I know they are. Oh, yeah.
For
sure.
I think I have a feeling they are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They are. They sure are. So,
last question.
Yeah.
As an astrologer influenced by Gann's work, how do you balance the objective analysis of the market data with intuitive insights derived from astrological interpretations? How do you find the right balance between logic and intuition in your approach?
I don't use the intuition when I come to financial astrology.
Or logic?
I just use the cycles, what's it's telling me. If you use your intuition, you're probably going to make a mistake because that's based on your emotion.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Whereas your analysis is based on the analytic mind, not your emotion.
It's all the maths.
Yeah, and that's what you need. Because if you're trading just on emotion, you're going to fail, you know?
Yep.
But if you've got a system that you can see, you've analysed that this is telling me this, it's just more, it's better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do the intuition.
Yeah. I feel like when I've made trades, I don't trade anymore.
Yeah.
But when I used to make trades and I was using my emotions.
Yeah.
I made some bad decisions.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Lost thousands.
Yeah.
And I have a mate that lost a substantial amount of money and another mate that lost even more than that in the lunar collapse.
Yep.
Which was pretty rough. You know, people can make money and people make money and people lose money. That's the whole thing of it. Yeah. It's
but you can't. Yeah, you need to have a system, and you can't just do. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it today because everyone has bought, or you hear some news and that's not good.
Got to have that
discipline,
analytical discipline.
That's Saturn, and that's what Gann's telling you. You have to work, study, and have a system that you rely on, not just your emotion.
Yeah,
emotions lose money. You lose money for emotion.
Yeah. Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate your time. And I'd love to have you and Deb on one day together. Yes. I'm sure we can make that work.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
If you've listened so far. And, I'll see you soon.